He was standing over me. It's the first time I realized something was wrong. I woke up because I felt watched. It wasn't a sound that pulled me out of sleep. It wasn't a nightmare. It was that heavy, instinctive awareness that someone is standing too close to you. My eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the dim orange glow of the hallway light bleeding into the living room. And that's when I saw him. He was standing less than 3 feet away from the couch, holding a knife. I was 17 at the time, babysitting for a family I had known for almost a year. They had 2 kids, a 10-year-old boy named Mason and his younger sister Ava, who was 7. I had stayed overnight before. Nothing unusual had ever happened. That night had followed the same pattern: dinner, homework, a short argument over bedtime. By 9:30, both kids were asleep upstairs. I locked the doors, checked the stove, and settled onto the couch with a blanket. I must have drifted off sometime after midnight. When I opened my eyes and saw Mason standing there, my brain refused to process what my vision was telling it. He wasn't speaking. He wasn't crying. He wasn't even blinking. He was just staring at me. The knife in his hand was one of the larger kitchen knives. I recognized it immediately, the one his mom used to cut vegetables earlier that evening. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. My heart began pounding so violently that I could hear the rush of blood in my ears. My body felt heavy, trapped between fight and flight. I forced myself not to sit up too quickly, not to startle him. "Mason," I said quietly. His expression didn't change. He took one slow step closer. The blade caught the light. I realized then that if he lunged forward, I wouldn't have time to react. I swallowed and pushed myself into a seated position slowly, keeping my hands visible. My voice had to stay calm. If I panicked, he might panic. "Hey," I said gently, "why don't you give that to me?" Nothing. He tilted his head slightly, as if studying me. There was no anger in his eyes, no emotion at all. It was the blankness that unsettled me the most. Another step forward. I could see now that his grip on the knife wasn't steady. His hand trembled faintly. "Mason," I repeated, softer this time. "It's okay. You're safe. Let's put it down." His breathing seemed shallow, almost mechanical. For a moment, I wondered if he was even fully awake. Then, without warning, he raised the knife slightly, not high enough to strike, just enough to make my chest tighten. I didn't scream. Every instinct in me wanted to, but something told me that sudden noise would make this worse. Instead, I slowly stood up. The movement made him freeze. We were now at eye level. I took one careful step forward. He didn't retreat. Another step. Now we were less than a foot apart. I could smell the faint scent of toothpaste on his breath. "Mason," I whispered, keeping my tone steady. "You're dreaming. You need to wake up." For a split second, his eyes flickered. Confusion crossed his face. Then his arm went limp. The knife slipped from his fingers and clattered onto the hardwood floor, the sound slicing through the silence like a gunshot. He blinked rapidly, looking around as if he had just been dropped into the room. "What's happening?" he asked, his voice small. Relief hit me so hard, my knees nearly gave out. "You had a bad dream," I said, nudging the knife away with my foot. "You're okay." He looked down at the knife on the floor, then back at me, and I saw genuine fear forming in his expression. "I don't remember coming downstairs," he said. I believed him. I guided him back to bed, every shadow in the hallway suddenly feeling heavier than before. I stayed with him until his breathing slowed and he drifted back to sleep. After closing his bedroom door, I walked straight to the kitchen. The knife block sat on the counter. One slot was empty. I placed the knife back into it and locked the entire set inside a cabinet above the refrigerator. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I told his parents everything. At first, they thought he must have been joking, sleepwalking maybe, but they agreed to check the security camera in the kitchen. What we saw made my stomach drop. The footage showed Mason entering the kitchen at 12:17 a.m. His movements were slow but deliberate. He stood in front of the knife block for nearly 2 full minutes, just standing there, staring at it. Then he reached out, removed the knife carefully, and walked out of frame. There was no hesitation, no clumsiness. It didn't look like sleepwalking. It looked intentional. His parents scheduled a doctor's appointment immediately. The conclusion was parasomnia, complex sleepwalking episodes that can include performing detailed tasks. But that explanation didn't erase the image burned into my memory. The way he stood over me, silent, watching. If I hadn't woken up when I did, I don't know what would have happened. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. I continued babysitting for them for a few weeks after that, but I never felt fully relaxed again. Every creak of the house at night made my chest tighten. Every shadow in the hallway made my pulse spike. Eventually, I stopped accepting overnight jobs altogether, because I realized something that night. Danger doesn't always break in through a door. Sometimes it walks quietly down the hallway while you're asleep. And sometimes the person holding the knife doesn't even know they're holding it.